Before the lights. Before the photo shoots. Before the camera ever found me. There was only silence. I was the girl beside him. Not in front. Never in focus. The one who took his photos while he posed. The one who loved quietly. While he made noise. Until the day he looked at me. And said the words I'd never forget. "You're too plain to be noticed." He didn't know. Those words would become my origin story. I met Ethan when I was 19. It was the summer before my second year of college. I was waitressing at a trendy cafe near campus, just trying to make rent, keep my grades up, and avoid the kind of attention that pretty girls were used to fending off. I never considered myself pretty. Not the kind people posted about. I had soft features, a narrow frame, quiet eyes. No one stared. No one stopped me in the street. But Ethan did. He had a smile like summer and enough confidence to borrow some for others. He ordered black coffee every morning, flirted without trying, and complimented the way I tied my apron. "You're different," he said one day. "It's refreshing." I didn't know then that different could mean so many things. The beginning was kind. He sent texts that made me blush. Took me on long walks and kissed me like I was delicate. Told his friends I was real. That I wasn't like the girls who posted thirst traps or chased likes. He made me feel seen. I supported him through everything. His failed app launch. His digital marketing internship. His ego bruises when his influencer crush didn't follow him back. I was the steady one. The soft shoulder. The girl who packed his lunches and stayed up helping him edit his YouTube thumbnails. And for a while he made me believe that my quietness was valuable. That being unseen meant being treasured. Slowly, that changed. As his Instagram following grew, so did his hunger. He started caring more about angles than authenticity. More about engagement than emotion. He changed his hair, his wardrobe, his captions. Everything curated, filtered, inflated. And then one day he asked me not to tag him in our photos. "It's just better for my brand if we keep things subtle," he said. "Subtle," I echoed. "Like I don't exist?" He kissed my forehead. "No. Just quiet love, you know. It's more real that way." But nothing about him was quiet anymore. He started dragging me to events I didn't belong in. Rooms full of influencers, models, micro-celebrities with waist trainers and sponsored smiles. They'd glance at me then look away. I didn't fit. I knew it. I didn't wear the right makeup. Didn't pose the right way. Didn't dress like someone worth following. And he stopped introducing me. Once I heard a girl ask if I was his assistant. He didn't correct her. Later I asked why. "Babe," he said, "don't make things awkward. People don't need to know everything about us." I nodded. And inside I crumbled just a little more. It happened on a Tuesday. We were at a brand event for a boutique skincare label. The kind that posted all their launch parties on Instagram and paid TikTokers to smile with serums in hand. Ethan had brought me reluctantly. He was busy schmoozing a new model, Layla, all legs and lips and vintage Versace. I stood awkwardly by the punch bowl, trying not to wilt under the ring lights. I walked up to him between conversations. "Do you want me to take some photos of you?" I asked as I always did. He barely glanced at me. Then under his breath, almost casually, he said, "You're too plain to be noticed. Just stay in the background like you always do." And walked away. The room didn't spin. The music didn't fade. But something inside me broke. Not loudly. Not visibly. It cracked like glass under pressure. And I stood there, camera in hand, realizing I'd become invisible. Not to the world. But to the one person I thought saw me. The last night. I didn't fight him. I didn't scream or cry or throw his things out a window. I went home. Packed a single suitcase. And left before he could notice I was gone. He didn't call. Didn't text. Didn't ask where I went. Because to him I was never really there. The apartment. I moved into a studio 2 train lines away from the city center. It was tiny with cracked tiles and a broken heater, but it was mine. No one knew me here. I could breathe. I got a part-time job at a vintage bookstore. Spent hours reading, sketching, taking walks by the river. I deleted Instagram. Deleted our photos. Deleted every version of me that existed in the shadow of his light. And in that quiet, I began to rebuild. One evening I caught myself in the mirror after a shower. No makeup. Hair damp. Eyes tired. And for the first time I didn't hate what I saw. I saw skin that had weathered sadness. A body that had survived disappointment. A face that had been overlooked and was still standing. I picked up my old sketchbook. And on the first blank page I wrote, "You don't need to be loud to be seen." It came from nowhere. A girl I met at the bookstore, Juno, was a freelance photographer. She asked to take some portraits for her portfolio. "You have this timeless face," she said. "Like art before filters." I laughed. "I'm not photogenic." "You're just not used to being seen," she replied. I agreed. Nervously. Secretly thrilled. We met in a park at golden hour. She snapped candid shots. Me reading, laughing, staring into the distance with hair half tucked into my coat. She posted one on her page. No hashtags. No captions. Got 11,000 likes. The morning after the photo shoot with Juno, I woke to a buzzing phone. A message from her read, "You're trending. Check this out." I opened the link and stared at the image. It was one of her portraits. The one where I was sitting beneath a tree, book open, eyes soft, sunlight brushing my cheek. She had tagged it with only 3 words. Soft doesn't mean small. The comments were overflowing. Who is she? This looks like a 90s editorial. Obsessed. She has that real beauty, like before social media ruined everything. Plain in the most hauntingly gorgeous way. Plain. That word again. But no. It didn't sting. It shimmered. A week later, a small sustainable fashion brand reached out. They had seen the photo and wanted to gift me a dress from their spring collection. "No pressure to post," they wrote. "We just love your energy." I laughed out loud. My energy? For so long I'd felt like I had none. Like Ethan had drained it from me, slowly over years of subtle dismissals and backhanded compliments. But something was shifting. Not just on the outside. Inside I felt the first flutter of something new. A voice. A whisper. Saying keep going. I didn't even have an Instagram anymore. Juno convinced me to start fresh. No pressure. Just a digital mood board. Be you. So I created a blank profile. At ava.not.average. No filters. No face tuning. Just a grid of warm-toned, softly lit images. Books I loved, moments of stillness, a few portraits from that first shoot. In 3 days I had 800 followers. In a week 3,000. Brands started noticing. Nothing massive, just indie jewelry makers, candle shops, local boutiques. But it wasn't about the free stuff. It was about control. For the first time in years I was deciding how I showed up in the world. Not Ethan. Not anyone else. Just me. I avoided looking him up at first. But curiosity is a stubborn thing. One night I typed his name into the search bar. He had gained 20,000 followers since I left. His grid was flooded with staged photos. Rooftop shots, fake laughs, collabs with energy drinks and sneakers. And in the middle of it all, a photo with Layla. Power couple vibes. It had over 10,000 likes. I stared at it longer than I should have. But I didn't cry. Not this time. Because something about it felt hollow. As if I could finally see what I hadn't before. All style. No substance. Juno called me 2 weeks later, practically vibrating through the phone. "Ava. Breathe. Guess who just reached out?" I braced myself. Aria Collective. My stomach dropped. Aria was an emerging editorial brand that focused on real beauty. Minimal edits, real skin, story-based campaigns. They were everything Ethan's world was not. "They want you," Juno said. "For their winter lookbook. Full shoot. Paid." I sat in stunned silence. "Are you okay?" she asked. I don't know," I whispered. "What if I'm not ready?" She paused. "Babe, you were born ready. You just forgot." They didn't. Not of me. Of the old version of me. The one who apologized for asking questions. The one who made herself smaller so he could stand taller. The one who flinched when he sighed too loudly. The one who thought being low maintenance was a compliment. I stood in front of the mirror the night before the shoot. Same face. Same features. Same softness. But a different woman. This one stood straighter. Looked herself in the eye. Didn't ask for permission to shine. The set was minimalist. A white studio with soft shadows and music that felt like silk. They draped me in earth-toned knits and rich fabrics. Nothing flashy, just elegance in motion. The photographer, a woman named Celeste, kept pausing between shots. "You have this presence," she said, tilting her head. You don't demand attention. You invite it. I blinked. No one had ever said anything like that to me before. Not even Ethan. He only ever noticed what I wasn't. Never what I was. When the campaign launched, it didn't explode. It simmered. And that was better. Because slow burns last longer. My inbox filled with messages. Not from fans but from women. I saw myself in you. Thank you for proving quiet girls don't have to change to be seen. You helped me delete his number. That one made me cry. Because I knew what it felt like. To finally delete his number. And mean it. Then one night it happened. From Ethan. I stared at the notification, heart thudding. I clicked. Didn't expect to see your face all over my feed. Crazy how far you've come. We should catch up sometime. It'd be fun to talk. Look, amazing. I stared at the words like they were a stranger. Because they were. He was. I didn't block him. Didn't reply. Didn't need to. Because the silence said everything. He was watching me rise. From the shadows he left me in. And now, I wasn't just being seen. I was being remembered. The Aria Collective campaign marked a turning point. Not in a fairy tale way. There was no overnight fame. No stream of agent calls or offers from Vogue. What came was subtler. Quieter. But deeply real. A few more emails. Some reposts from small fashion accounts. And most importantly, a shift in how I saw myself. For the first time, I wasn't waiting for someone to choose me. I was building a life. Where I chose myself. I upgraded to a one-bedroom apartment. Still modest. Still filled with second-hand furniture. But the light hit just right in the afternoons. And I filled it with things that made me feel alive. Books stacked high in every corner. Dried eucalyptus in a chipped vase. A single white wall where I took all my self-portraits. I began posting regularly. Not selfies. Mood shots. Honest moments. A piece of a poem beside a blurred photo of my morning tea. A short caption about walking through a storm. People connected. Slowly I went from 3,000 followers to 10,000. Not from selling anything. But from being someone. Healing without structure feels like drowning in stillness. So I gave myself rhythm. Mornings. Stretching. Journaling. A walk to the cafe where the barista remembered my name. Afternoons. Freelance content writing, planning posts, editing self-portraits. Evenings. A good book or bad TV. Sometimes both. I no longer lived to be someone's plus one. I lived for the girl who had been silenced too long. A voice message from Juno. Girl, you won't believe this. She paused dramatically. Maison Loom wants to send you a few pieces for their new spring drop. They said your page has the exact mood they're looking for. Their words, not mine. I froze. Maison Loom wasn't just a boutique brand. They were the quiet elite, timeless, neutral-toned, poetic minimalism that whispered elegance instead of shouting it. They didn't chase hype. They created legacy. And they wanted me. The package arrived. Wrapped in parchment and tied with real silk ribbon. A handwritten card on thick cardstock. To Ava. There's something about you we couldn't look away from. Wear these however you want. Let them tell your story. Maison Loom team. I held the letter like it might disappear. Because once I was the girl people looked through. Now I was the girl they couldn't stop watching. The photo shoot I directed myself. I didn't hire a stylist. Didn't book a fancy location. I chose my little apartment. A soft beige sheet as a backdrop. My plants. My favorite mug. My bare feet on the wooden floor. Juno came to shoot. I love that you still look like you, she said, adjusting the lens. Who else would I look like? She smiled. Everyone else tries to look like someone else. I didn't pose. I breathed. And the camera caught it. But here's the thing they don't tell you. Transformation isn't glamorous. It's quietly painful. I still had nights where I stared at the ceiling and wondered if I was fooling everyone. If I was just a ghost in good lighting. If my rise was accidental, temporary, fake. Imposter syndrome crept in like fog. Ethan's voice haunted me on loop. You're too plain. But I'd trained my mind now. When that voice echoed, I answered it. Plain doesn't mean invisible. It means unpainted. Unpolished. Pure. And there's power in that. I received an email from a major beauty brand. Big money. Massive exposure. But one condition. Light hair extensions, trendier makeup and soft contour for every shot. The old me would have said yes. Anything to feel worthy. The new me replied, "Thank you for the offer. I hope you find someone who fits your vision. I'm working on becoming someone who fits my own." They didn't respond. But a smaller, cleaner skincare brand did. And they said, "We've never seen anyone make bare skin look like a revolution." It wasn't Vogue. It was Rest, a slow-living editorial magazine that focused on authenticity, simplicity, and artistic storytelling. They wanted to feature me in their stillness issue. Not as a model, but as a voice. They wanted a photo series and a short essay. I wrote. They say I was too plain to be noticed. But maybe we're just not used to noticing people who don't scream for attention. Maybe softness is power. Maybe stillness is rebellion. The DM from Layla. Yes. That Layla. The one who replaced me. The one Ethan paraded at every party like a trophy he didn't deserve. She wrote, "Hey Ava. Just wanted to say, I've been following your journey. What you're doing is really inspiring. I'm not where I want to be yet, but watching you has reminded me to slow down. Hope that's not weird. Just wanted you to know." It wasn't weird. It was full circle. Because I'd once watched her too, through eyes clouded by insecurity. And now, he was watching me. With clarity. The numbers grew. 20,000. 50,000. 75,000. But the comments mattered more. "You taught me that softness is allowed. Your presence calms me. Thank you for showing me that I don't have to change to be seen." The cocoon wasn't just healing me anymore. It was holding space for others. And slowly, I felt the walls begin to crack. Not to collapse, but to open. I would fly. It started with a repost. One of the portraits from my Rest magazine shoot made it to the Explore page of a slow fashion influencer with 2 million followers. He captioned it, "She looks like poetry." Within hours my following doubled. 12,000, 24,000, 36,000. But it wasn't just numbers. It was brands, emails, people asking, "Who is she?" No hashtags, no giveaways, just a single image that carried truth. 1 week later, Glint, a London-based ethical fashion house, reached out. "We've been watching your journey. There's a depth to your presence we rarely see. We'd love to fly you out for our spring editorial campaign." I read the email 3 times. Once for shock, twice for belief, and the third, to say yes. London. It was my first time out of the country. The flight was long. I barely slept. When I arrived, I was greeted by a driver holding a sign that read, "Miss Ava Slate." I smiled. Slate. A name I chose for myself. A clean surface. A new beginning. They put me up in a small boutique hotel with white walls, lavender soap, and a view of the Thames. For a girl who once felt invisible at influencer parties, I suddenly felt seen by the world. It wasn't a high-gloss shoot. No glitter or glam. Glint was known for real beauty. Their set was drenched in natural light. Their makeup artist used only tinted balm and her fingers. No lashes. No contour. Just skin. Just me. The creative director, a kind woman with soft gray curls, took my hand and said, "Don't perform. Just be. That's your power." I breathed deeply. And I was. When the images were released, the response was immediate. Not viral. Something better. Respectful. Not hot or trending. But captivating. Unbothered and magnetic. Soft strength personified. Women reshared the post with captions like, "What grace looks like." And suddenly, I wasn't just an image. I was a mood. Meanwhile, back home Ethan was spiraling. I know because people sent me screenshots. Old friends. Quiet allies. Even Juno, who still had eyes everywhere. His engagement was dropping. Sponsorships had grown cold. Layla had stopped appearing on his page. And then came his post. A grainy shot of a sunset captioned, "They only love you when it's trendy." Subtle. Vague. But everyone knew what he meant. The girl who once waited behind the camera was now on billboards. And he was fading into the feed. 2 months later, Glint invited me to attend their annual showcase in New York. A red carpet. A front row seat. Not as someone's plus one, but as a feature. When I walked in, cameras turned. People whispered, "She's even more stunning in person. Is that Ava Slate?" I follow her religiously. She's so calm. I smiled. Not forced. Not for the press. Just because. I finally felt at home in my own skin. It happened in a blink. The room was humming with conversation. I was standing by the bar sipping water when the lights flickered slightly from a camera flash, directly in front of me. I turned and saw Ethan, holding his phone. He looked exactly the same, but smaller. Not physically, energetically. He froze. I didn't. I walked up to him slowly, tilted my head. "You got your shot?" I asked. He opened his mouth, closed it again. "Hey, Eva. I wasn't expecting to see you here." "You follow me," I said softly. "You should've." He laughed awkwardly. "You look different." "I look like myself," I corrected. "You just never saw it." His smile faded. "Layla left," he said suddenly. "She said I cared more about clout than connection." I sipped my water. She was right. He looked down. You're everywhere now." "No," I said. "I'm exactly where I was always meant to be." And I turned, walking back into a room that finally knew how to see me. That night, I received a request from Elle magazine. They wanted a cover story. They titled it, "From Invisible to Iconic: The Rise of Ava Slate." I asked them to change it, because I was never invisible. I was just underestimated. The letter I never sent. "Dear Ethan, thank you for never seeing me. Asterisk, if you had, I might have stayed small. I might have believed that plain meant worthless. That softness was weakness. But your dismissal was my fire. Now, I've become the woman you used to dream of. Not for you, but for me. Asterisk. Ava." I burned it in my kitchen sink. Not out of hate, but closure. Because this wasn't his story anymore. It was mine. I didn't wake up famous. It didn't happen in a flash or a headline. It happened in layers. Each brand collaboration added a new ripple. Each magazine feature stitched another thread into my story. Each message from someone saying, "You made me feel seen," was another reason to keep going. I stopped counting followers. I started counting the ways I felt like myself again. They titled it, "The Model Who Chose Stillness Over Stardom." It wasn't about beauty. It was about intention. The article spoke of grace, resilience, and rebuilding identity without revenge. For the first time I saw my own story. Written without apology. The photo? Black and white. Me sitting cross-legged in a linen dress, head tilted slightly, looking into the lens like I wasn't asking to be liked. Just understood. The world understood. Now they called directly. Some of them had once passed over my portfolio. Some had worked with Layla and Ethan on noisy campaigns that fizzled fast. Now they wanted my tone. My energy. My presence. But I said no, more than I said yes. Because my rise wasn't about being everywhere. It was about being intentional. If a campaign didn't align with what I stood for, authenticity, stillness, soft strength, I turned it down. And every time I did, I grew louder. Without ever raising my voice. Juno's studio. I helped her open it. She used to take my photos on borrowed time, borrowed light, borrowed faith. Now she had a full team. Full bookings. A waiting list. And at the entrance of her new studio, a framed photo of me from our very first shoot. "You started this," she said. "You made people believe art didn't need to scream." I didn't know how to reply, so I just hugged her. And we cried in silence. Because sometimes victory isn't flashy. Soft. Warm. Earned. I was asked to speak at a creative summit on influence and identity. The other panelists were loud names. Actors, stylists, a former reality star. When it was my turn to speak, the moderator asked, "Ava, you've never been scandalous, controversial, or loud. How did you manage to rise in a world that rewards chaos?" I smiled softly. I didn't chase attention. I made peace with being quiet. And when you're still long enough, people start to listen. The audience was silent for a breath. Then erupted in applause. Among hundreds of emails and DMs, one stood out. A girl. 16. Quiet. Bookish. Bullied at school for not wearing makeup. For being boring. She wrote, "I saw your photo in my sister's magazine. You look like how I want to feel. Not perfect. Just okay being myself. Thank you for making girls like me feel visible." I cried. Because she was the girl I once was. And now, she was looking at me. like I once looked at everyone else, longing for permission to belong. This time it wasn't a DM. It was a public comment. Under a photo of me in a campaign for a fragrance line, he wrote, "Always knew you had it in you. Just sorry it took me too long to see it." The comment got hundreds of likes. But I didn't respond. Not because I was bitter, but because I was done. Done seeking closure from someone who only saw my worth when the world did. My first real gala. Not as someone's plus one. Not because I was dating the right person. Not because I got lucky. Because I was invited. The dress. Custom. Simple. Ivory silk with a bare back and nothing more than a pearl clip in my hair. The carpet was loud. But I walked like the quietest person in the room. Could also be the most unforgettable. The flashes didn't faze me. I didn't pose. I just stood tall. And let them see me. One of the world's most iconic skincare companies reached out. They were launching a campaign called The Face You Forgot. The concept? Celebrating timeless beauty in unexpected places. Models who were overlooked, underestimated, or told they didn't have the look. They wanted me as the lead. Me. Not with smoky eyes or sharp cheekbones or airbrushed edits. Just me. Freckles. Bare lips. A soft gaze that had once been ignored. Now chosen. By design. The billboard launched in 5 countries. Towering, bold, graceful. No headline. No tagline. Just my face. My name. And below it a single line. Seen. He saw it. Of course he did. Everyone did. But I didn't need the world to clap. Didn't need him to regret. Didn't need anyone to tell me I'd made it. Because I already knew. I was back in the city where it all began. Same skyline. Same cafe. Same sidewalks I used to walk beside him, shrinking a little more each time he pulled away. But now the buildings looked smaller. Or maybe I just stood taller. I had returned for a collaboration with a new luxury label. They were doing something bold. A showcase of creative women reimagining fashion, storytelling, and influence. Not models. Not actresses. Makers. Thinkers. Movers. I wasn't here as the girl who used to be his girlfriend. I was Ava Slate, the woman who turned soft into strength, and stillness into status. An art gallery turned into an exhibit space. White walls. High ceilings. Long shadows. Each room displayed one story. One woman. One journey. A series of frames on canvas. Portraits Juno had taken over the last year. Unretouched. Untouched. Raw. In the center, a quote I had written in gold. Visibility is not validation. I was whole before the world noticed. People paused when they read it. Some cried. And in that moment I realized. I hadn't just risen. I had resonated. I heard his voice before I saw him. It was subtle. A laugh I hadn't heard in over a year. I turned slowly, and there he was. Thin. He looked dimmer. Thinner maybe. Still well-dressed, but with that desperate edge people get when the spotlight moves on without them. He was talking to someone at the edge of the room. But when he saw my photo on the gallery wall, he stopped mid-sentence. And then he turned. Our eyes met. He started walking toward me. I didn't move. Ava, he said breathless. This is incredible. I nodded. It is. He smiled almost boyish. I always knew you had this in you. No, you didn't, I said softly. His smile faltered. If you had, I continued, you wouldn't have tried so hard to make me disappear. He opened his mouth. I'm not angry, I added. That's the part you probably don't believe. He closed his mouth again. I'm grateful actually, I said. You gave me silence. And in that silence, I met the woman you never took the time to see. He looked away. I made mistakes. You made choices, I corrected. He blinked. Could we ever talk? Like, really talk? I shook my head gently. I don't need to rewrite our ending, Ethan. I just needed to finish my own story. When I walked away, he didn't chase me. Didn't text later. Didn't reach out again. Because for the first time, he understood what it meant. To be left behind. By someone who no longer looks back. Ava Slate became a brand. Not the influencer type. Not the logo on tote bag type. Something slower. More meaningful. A creative studio for women who had once been invisible. Designers. Photographers. Writers. stylists. All with stories of being overlooked, underestimated, silenced. I called it soft power. Because that's what we were. Not loud, but unshakable. The letter to my past self. I wrote it one night, sitting in the same cafe where I once used to wait for him to finish his phone calls. Dear Ava, you were never too plain. You were just too rare for people who wanted noise. You weren't overlooked because you lacked something. You were overlooked because the world is too fast to notice the quiet miracles. But look at you now. You didn't chase the light. You became it. And you didn't rise because someone finally saw you. You rose because you finally saw yourself. A year later, I walked past a bookstore. In the window, an international fashion magazine featured a special anniversary issue. 50 women who redefined beauty. My face was on the cover. No makeup. No styling. Just me. Lips parted. Hair undone. Eyes open. Caption read, Ava Slate, the woman who made the world slow down and look again. He called me too plain to be noticed. And for a while, I believed him. But pain became clarity. Silence became strategy. And invisibility became a canvas. Now, I am the image on every wall. He'll walk past. For the rest of his life. Not for revenge. Not for applause. But because I no longer shrink to fit anyone's vision. I am Ava Slate. I don't demand attention. I command it. With presence. With purpose. With peace. The